Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, what is the major problem with manifesting? Why can't you manifest faster and better? And why in some areas are you unable to manifest much at all? Well, you may even say, well, I have the technology, I'm using it, and it's working for me, but not at the level that I really want. Well, why doesn't manifesting technologies work for you personally? And we got to remember that we're at the highest level of manifesting in science here in general, and that's interacting with bioentities, anything that is changeable, that is different from one from the other. Now, I've talked about this before. When you're talking about something that's same and same, well, you mix this chemical together, you mix this together, and you create whatever those two chemicals do, whether it creates a solid or a gas or whatever. This is all part of the normal process, otherwise called science, which people think that's science, but that's more engineering. Meaning the fact that you get a very predictable result pretty much 100% of the time. So if you mix it together, this is what happens. And if you use the same ingredients, this is what happens. It's pretty much 100%. You rarely does that change. Now, what does change is the fact that any time that you start changing the ingredients, or secondly, which again can be verified to the fact that, well, if you add a little more of this, it still is very measurable and you get the same results. When you are affecting a bioentity, something that is in a state of flux, and you got to remember this is one of the laws of physics, is the fact that everything is in a flux state, meaning it's changing. Some things change faster than others. When you're dealing with bioenergies, you're dealing with something that's constantly changing. The energy flow within you of a bioenergy is constantly in flux. Now, when you have something that is solid, let's say you're mixing cement or steel, or you've built a bridge based on these ingredients, there is a flux going on, but it's a very minor flux, and this doesn't really hurt the structure. Over time it may be, just as things start to break down. The structure of a bridge starts to change after 20 or 30 years, or maybe radically change, I should say. So the point is that you are slowly breaking down. And this entire world is based on the breaking down of energies. That's what we live in. So that's why things are in a constant state of flux. Now, things break down at different rates of, quote, decay. The average life expectancy is about 80 to 86 years of age. So you've broken down by 86. What do you do to stop that entropic reality as a bioentity? Well, it's difficult because there's so many things involved in it. So we have to look at these things from a bigger position. Without getting too technical right here, the key to everything is to create a non-entropic environment, meaning the environment is stabilized so it doesn't decay. If this is done properly, theoretically you've created immortality. Now, can you take a bioentity and stop the entire process? Well, I think you can. And this is what's done by advanced cultures, extraterrestrials, etc. The whole idea is they are immortal. Why are they immortal? Well, they're immortal because they've stopped this entropic reality that we live in. Everything on this planet is breaking down all the time. I don't know if too many people understand that concept or not. And of course, that's a understanding in subtle energy physics, that everything is breaking down. And at what rate is it breaking down affects the stability and the controllability of it. So, this is why radionic rates vary from 1 second to another. And this is what's so confusing about radionics, is that I don't care how good you are, if you get a rate on something one time, and then you get a rate 2 minutes later, it's going to be different. Sometimes they're fairly close, but they are different. Sometimes they're radically different, particularly over time period. So this is all a particular, very difficult way of operating with this particular problem that we run into, and that is the fact that dealing with bioentities that are constantly changing. So all of life is constantly changing, but the whole idea is that rocks you see out there are wearing down. They actually, as a matter of fact, soil came from the fungus on rocks that ate at that rocks and created the soil that we have today. And this, of course, is done over, I don't know, millions, tens of millions, billions of years. This is how soil is created. So, and it's a time factor again. It's an entropy factor of that rock decaying. And you can see how it's very necessary for society to survive to have this process. If everything was made and never decayed, well, it would be a real problem to a large degree. So it has to go through this kind. So it has to go through this kind of process. And these are things that when it gets to a bioentity process, particularly human beings, it's pathetically fast entropic reality, while a rock is extremely slow. So the extremely fast is upsetting to the whole reality. And of course, there are certain insects and other animals that have very, very short lifespans. So insects can be, I believe there are some insects that live for a day or maybe hours, and then they die. So this is how you have a actual huge entropic factory for the different species and different energies, etc. Some plants will live for a long time, certain plants. Some trees will live hundreds, maybe people think thousands of years. Others don't. There's a life expectancy, and I don't know how many people understand that, to different trees and so forth. So trees don't last forever. If you plant a fruit tree, it maybe have a life expectancy. I'm not sure what the figures are, but just throw it out there. Maybe it's 20, 30 years, and then the trees don't produce as well. You have to have new trees. So there's an aging process and a dysfunctioning realm of energy that happens in all of nature. And that includes the plant world. And the plant world is, guess what? Is a bioentity. So these are energies that are changing all the time. And it's just the rate of change that determines the handling of that particular energy. So this is all part of course, understanding the bigger picture of subtle energy physics. So when you're interacting with these energies, what are you going to do with it? I mean, technically, if you wanted to, by using subtle energy physics and radionic machines, you could stop the decay of anything, particularly things like bridges. If you had a radionic machine on a bridge, it would never really decay. You could keep the energy around it, and you would have no problem with that bridge really ever breaking down as long as that machine was working at its particular level, because you'd be constantly building up the energy fields around that, so the steel and cement really never went into a major entropic situation, and at the very least you could slow it down. Ideally, you would build something physical, connect a subtle energy machine to it, and it would be an immortal structure. It would never decay or get entropic in nature. I mean, the bridge would never weaken based on all of that. So, again, we're trying to, those are easier things to work on. When you get into the very changeable bioenergies, we have an entire different reality to look at. So all of this is part of the problem that we have with understanding these type of energies. Now, it's really not complicated. I'm not sure this is that much out of regular science. People just don't talk like this. What scientists like to do is tell you what's happening. Oh, yeah, it's breaking down. Yeah, we got a problem. You know, well, that's not real science. That's an idiot science. If you're a scientist, I don't need to tell me what's the obvious. Yeah, the bridge failed because it was old and it broke down. Plain and simple. That's not science. Science has answers to say, well, how do we stop that process? And it's more than just rebuilding again from the kindergarten preschool attitude. It's how do we keep that structure going entirely, indefinitely. And of course, that's what we want to do, particularly with the massive amount of costs involved in these things, and of course, safety, etc. When we get into other areas, it's even more important. Because obviously bioentities, otherwise known as humans, and to a large extent even crops and everything else, if we could keep these going, growing larger, better, safer, not using chemicals, we can reduce the cost to get a higher yield, and we can feed people very cheaply. Well, we don't want that, do we? No. Can't have that. The rich scum can't make money off of the poor people. So the whole idea is that all of these things have been the reality of that's going on. So, and of course, the pathetic the horrible lifespan of the human race. Until that is doubled, we will never see any changes on Earth, period, because there's no reason to change. People will make their money, don't care about it, and they know they're going to die soon anyway, and it doesn't really matter whether they have kids or grandchildren or anything else. All they really care about is they understand that they've made their money, they've been there doing their evil deeds, which this reality also enforces. Obviously, this reality, and it's been talked about by extraterrestrials, of how the planet Earth feeds evilness. That's part of it, and it may have even been introduced here. It's a very interesting thing to think about, and we've talked about this with the Winnetkos and the basic evil energy that seems to permeate this planet, which is from the outside in, not from the inside out. I think that's a childish way of looking at things. It gets back to the Freudian concept of everything comes from your internal subconscious self. Well, then that means that your internal subconscious self, there's something wrong with it. It's intrinsically evil, going against Mother Nature, meaning it's self-destructive. So, but let's not get too far into logic again, especially since we have to listen to the bogus boobs from the past, from a particular horrible place on this earth. So we have to fully understand what's going on there with all these concepts, without jumping around too much here. So, the reason why everything changes is because of this atropic nature of things. Stop atrophy, you stop everything, because that's really what we're talking about. And that's what we're talking about in the success area. There is a field around you that is successful. And this breaks down and varies all the time. Now, the way that we can look at this is that why are some people lucky? You know, there's that just lucky dude out there. You just want to smack him in the head. How come you're so lucky all the time? Everybody else tries hard. They're smarter than you. They're better looking than you. They're taller than you. And you are the one who is successful. You know, the guy who wins the trip, probably in a raffle or something, probably just came back from a trip. Why? Well, energetically, we can 100% understand this. Plain and simple, he has a success energetic field around him that is just a magnet. I talk about this all the time. These are all the keys, people. This is some valuable information out there that you should understand. So how do you do that? The point is they've got this strong feeling. Why is somebody successful and popular? You know, and I've researched this. Basically, all your super rich guys, they're as dumb as rocks. I mean, Bill Gates, the bozo that he is, and he's doing a lot of research instead of on how to live longer and survive disease and other things. He's doing a lot of wasted time with his billions. But whatever, that's the way it should be. Hopefully he'll leave us soon, and we'll have that personal stupidity gone from the planet, but his damage will be done already. But he's not very smart. You know, he came out and it's on the internet that he stated that the internet will go nowhere. It's a joke. What is it? I mean, this is the kind of futurist he is. There's no idea what he's talking about. Branson from Virgin Records, another billionaire, is pretty much kind of a boob who is so dyslexic he barely functions. Well, why are these people billionaires? Well, they're billionaires because they have surrounded themselves with other smart people because they were able to bring them in, pick the right people that make their organization. No one leader, while they're important and set a kind of guiding course to an organization, if you don't have good people working for you, you're going to go nowhere. So, and I'm assuming these people know it. And of course, you only hear about one person. You hear about Microsoft, but there was a whole bunch of people in the Microsoft management that made it work. I mean, Apple wasn't made by Steve Jobs, who knew nothing. It's basically a goofball little new ager who went and took mushrooms, who never graduated. He didn't even go, I don't think he even went to college. He didn't have it. And to overcome this, he acted like a giant louse that he was. He was a nasty little guy, and that's how he ruled things. You cross Steve Jobs and you're fired. So you just never criticize him. Well, that's what you do when you have no personal power. He's a guy that picked the colors of a computer, didn't even know how to plug it in, basically. And certainly knew nothing about any kind of physical design, which is really what a computer comes back to. It's certainly nice to have good aesthetics. But aesthetics don't make it function right. If you have a pretty machine that doesn't work, well, who cares? So I think you should have a complements of both. So all of that is doing very well and empowering, etc. So all of that is a difficult situation to look at in the bigger picture. But when you look at all the successful people, a lot of it is breaks and luck, etc. Simple as that. People are successful, whether it's Hollywood or other places, because of the luck of getting a particular movie role that was popular. And a lot of people turned down some of the biggest movies that were out there. They didn't want to be involved in that, or many times they have contractual conflictions, which they couldn't take that role. If you look at the Hollywood movies that are so successful and who originally was wanted to star in them, is quite shocking of who would have been in that part. And of course, today you can't even picture that other person in there, but they would have been someone who would have done extremely well. So, because of it, they would have taken that role, and they didn't for numerous reasons. But these are the decisions you make. Were those good decisions or bad decisions? Well, they weren't clicked in. The other person who got that role was the person who had the high energy and the success around them. So that's the bottom line. You can overcome a lot with being lucky and but luck is an energy field that is around you, plain and simple. So that's what you have to have around you. So even if you're a doofus like Bill Gates and you have energy around you to attract the good people who make most of the decisions, you're still going to do extremely well. So that's how the world works. So how do you become that person with the proper energy around you? First of all, you have to understand that. So you got to remember that everything in subtle energy physics, which is the physics of the universe, is all based on the fact of energy fields. Energy fields that get denser and denser into physical matter. But we're not really concerned with that. I'm not concerned with making a rock. I mean, theoretically, you could then make gold, silver, petroleum, all from subtle energies. But the bottom line is that that process would be difficult and very expensive. There's no reason to do that. And everybody could just flip their machine on and make a gold coin. Well, gold would be as worthless as aluminum. So that's what it would run into. But we're not interested in that per se. That's really not something we want to do. It sounds fun, the alchemical is changing lead into gold and these type of things. I guess if you could do that on an individual basis, it would be very profitable for you. But it's also the fact is that where is this coming from? Most likely you'll be discovered and you will be murdered or used and enslaved by the people that want that. You got to remember, you don't make a lot of money and get by in this life. Lottery winners, which is something I've researched as well, are harassed by a whole group of people. Generally, lottery winners lose all their money within 5 to 10 years. A lot of that is stolen. They've had people that even come to their doors with guns and threaten them. Threaten their family with guns. They come to your door because they know you're a lottery winner and people are going to hunt you down. And this is one of the amazing things in life that people overlook. Of course, they don't want that publicized. But you're going to get every person coming to you asking for money. Oh, I got the best investment. I got this. I got that. Yeah, I've got property on the moon. And we're going to have rockets going there soon. Oh, yeah. And there's billions in it for you. And, of course, you being a dummy invest in things like that. And they walk away chuckling. So the whole idea is that we have to make sure that we understand the reality of that. So you just can't have awesome technologies. Now, what you can and give it to the public, people that claim things like time travel and other things, it's all nonsense. It's an awesome power that you would never be able to have in the regular public, no matter what level you're at. So keeping that all in mind is something that in the bigger picture is important. But the bottom line is we're not really concerned with that. You don't need to have those kind of primitive direct results. You don't need to make money by having a pound of gold in your house that you then figure out how to explain and how to sell, which is even more amusing because you only get half the gold price for it. That's how the economy works. So if you sell a pound of gold and it's worth $1,000 on the market, you only get $500. So the whole idea is that these are all the things. So the whole idea is you want to figure out how to keep the energy fields around you that manifest in what your society is doing, meaning investments, meaning whatever it is that you're doing, getting better jobs, whatever it is that you're interested in, you have to and power those particular fields that work well for you there. So that's very important to understand in the bigger picture. So you've got to work within your society and what you can figure out and what you can do, whatever that may be affecting. And this, again, is difficult as well. It's difficult. How do you affect things to make money for yourself in general? Because this is the number one. Well, I don't know if that's the number one need. It certainly is at the top of the list, but money and health are the two critical things in your life. And health, of course, you can work a little more directly on yourself by using your technologies to make sure that you stop the entropic factor of your organs, your body in general. All these things can be stopped as this technology. And we're working on this particular point of how to actually work on biological entities to the highest level, whether that's agriculture or the physical, not really the physical body, but the energetic body. Because that's what we're concerned with, the energetic agriculture. So we're working heavily on this as this is one of the most potent needs as we get older and everybody gets sicker and so many things. So we have to figure out, well, how do we use these subtle energies to keep ourselves at the highest physical performance? Because that determines all the other things. So as I've mentioned recently, if you're not physically fit, if you're not thinking right, if you're not feeling motivated, you're never going to do anything. So the whole idea is what's happening around you, which we run into here in our biggest problems, is the fact of all these energies around you, regardless if you're producing positive energy. So you've got your main Triforce system, you've got so many of our other tools. All of these things are working for you fairly well, but you have your ups and downs. Well, that's normal in life in general. Now, the whole idea is life is about stabilizing your life first, making sure that if you have a down, it isn't a giant gully like the Grand Canyon. The whole idea is for, you have a stumble instead of falling. So there's a big difference between falling flat on your face and breaking your nose and your glasses if you wear them and just tripping a little bit and catching yourself. I mean, we've all done this. But there's a big difference when that trip turns into a fall and there's even potential damage there. So the whole idea is that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to start off with the fact because there's going to be times that happens. And when you get past that level, you're not supposed to stumble at all. You're supposed to just stay on an even keel. The problem is with the even pathway, you want to go up from there. The whole idea of this technology is not only to protect and stay even, but to advance yourself to higher levels of whatever that may be. Now, what stops this from happening? Well, there's all sorts of things. Again, this is you have to be in tune to what yourself is. We try and offer people lots of upgrading products and other things to keep putting, as we make more breakthroughs, we figure out how to do things better. These are all important. This is all part of the process. It would be nice to start at the top of the mountain and never really have to go higher than that. But the bottom line is you're always finding new things out. That's the nature of life. I mean, there's a new car model every year where things are changed. And I think these things are discovered during the process of using the old model. So you never really have we could have done this, but we didn't. I'm not sure that that's a major factor. I think improvements are learned by you make something good, and then you figure out, well, that's a good product. And then you say, well, gee, we can make it better, though, because of the new knowledge we have. And in this day and age, with the massive amounts of information out there, this becomes fairly rapid. So what do? And we figure out how to work things better. And that's just the nature of all technologies. There's always that new software program. You may have, what are we up to now on Windows? What is it, 11 now? That means there's 11 versions of this, and they last 20 years if it's even been that long. So the whole which is almost a version every couple of years. So the whole idea is that this is how society works and how things work in general. And it's not necessarily have anything to do with, we want to come out with new products so people buy things. I think maybe big business does that, but certainly I'm not sure small business does that. I think certainly I don't personally do that. I just run into new things all the time. How to do it better. What is this person doing? Well, that's an interesting ad. Well, let's make our version of that because that's a good idea. This is how the world works, of course. There's no original ideas. There's usually versions of an idea. So you make the idea your own by putting your own spin to it. That's what everybody does. And that's how these things tend to work. So we need to understand that as a process. So what is causing this, though? And, I've looked at this, and, I constantly are working with people and finding, well, what's your problem in life? Why are you having this happening and that happening? And there are several different areas that affect your reality, regardless of the tools you have. And what are these areas, and what are stopping your advancement? Well, they're called blockages. You have blockages in life, and these blockages, no matter what you do, you have to remove the blockages before you can move ahead and be successful. So what are these blockages? And I've spoken about this on several occasions, but your particular cross condition. Are you crossed? Crossed means basically you could see a road in front of you, and you could be driving or walking, and that road or pathway in front of you, you've got trees fell in front of it. You've got rocks there. You've got bad weather. These are all the things that are the blockages in your life. So you can't just keep, you're building up a speed. You got your Triforce system, you're using a radio. You're building up your speed and and you're producing all these positive energies, but all of a sudden, boom, there's a rock right in front of the road. What do you do? Well, that's a blockage. That's called being crossed. Now, how do you get crossed? How do all these? Well, there's a lot of ways, and you are not an island. We are very interdependent upon people. It's amazing how interdependent we are, and we continue to ignore this, and we continue to kill each other. We continue to start wars for basically somebody else's money. The bottom line is that everybody is basically the same. There are a lot of social differences we have to understand, but stay in your country and wear your wooden shoes and stay out of mine. We don't have to fight each other because I don't want wooden shoes. So the whole idea is that's the reality of all that. So we don't have to do that. And quite frankly, we need the goods you have. We like your cheese you make, and vice versa. We see this right now with how the entire economy in a lot of Europe is in serious trouble because of the fact of a ridiculous war that couldn't be avoided and basically was made worse when it was really a simple solution to that particular war, but they did it deliberately to spend billions on arms, which is there. Of course, particularly the United States, who's pushed all this nonsense to make billions of dollars go to the biggest criminals. So it's just the way it is, and it's pretty sad. So the whole idea is that that's the reality that's going on there, and what are we going to do to all this? So you have these blockages. How did these happen? Well, you can't live in the Ukraine, have all your machines going, you're making lots of money, your business is going great. All of a sudden, there's a Russian tank in your backyard. I did not plan for that door. Maybe I should have tuned my machine to stop the Russian tanks from being in my backyard. Well, you probably should have, and if you were watching the news, you would have known that. That's been going on there for many, many years. The problem's there. This is not a new situation, and the Ukrainians attacked the Russians and murdered Russian citizens. But let's not get into the facts. So the whole idea is that you probably should have figured that out, and if you were really at the highest level, you would have known the future, but that's pretty advanced when you start getting into the fact of saying, well, I'm going to, and it's very difficult to do. I've tried to do this for years, and I've known there were problems, but I don't want to move now. Well, I should have moved. So the whole idea is that ultimately you should have known that this is not a bad place. You should have moved your business out of, this is a bad place. You should have moved your business out of there. But the whole idea is you're part of this bigger world, and it's going to get you whether you like it or not. So you have to know what's going on as much as who cares about the news, but you have to know about it because there's things happening, and what do you do? So the bottom line is that that's how all that stuff works. So now you have all these blockages. What do you do about it? So you have blockages in life, and there's people that affect you. Your family affects you, your relatives, your spouse, your job. All of this affects you dramatically. So, and what do you do about all that stuff? Well, the whole idea is that you're doing about these things is a very serious situation of having a crossed situation where you need to stay uncrossed. Because there's constant negativity put on you directly and indirectly. Now, it may not be somebody sitting down there negatively trying to affect you. But, if they're a conflicting person in your life because they just don't assist you in life, they don't do much to help the situation, well, that's a blockage. It means you get less done because you have no help. This is a problem a lot of people run into. People are disinterested in important areas, very typical with spouses, etc. So what happens? You can run into conflicts at your job and other things, making it very stressing. And you come home and you're tired. You can't do everything. You tend to eat worse and everything else. So the whole idea is you want to work on this, but you got a good job. Maybe you even manifested that job from your technologies. You can't just say, I'm going to quit and find something else. So you have to empower yourself or make your environment better. So these constantly are coming up. So you have these things, and that's what a cross conditions are blockages, and they could be severe, constant, etc. So you have to always watch that. How do you keep yourself clear so that your manifesting technologies can work best for you? Now, there's the other aspect of this. So the other aspect of is the fact that what does these cross conditions and life in general do to you? Because when you get stressed out and messed up, you get bioenergetic problems. Now, the bioenergetic problems, it means your third eye and your chakras, which determine your high-level functioning. This is a major part of how you function in life. Your health, the way you think, and the ability to use your technology to the highest level are dependent upon these areas. And the bottom line is I've been checking this for the last year or so with people, and most people are closed 60 to 80%. They're closed. Their chakras are closed, and their third eye is closed. To that amount. So that's pretty bad, and then I can see why they have blockages and why they have difficulties manifesting. So having blockages are directly related to having low flow of energy through the chakras and through the third eye. So, and this happens normally in life. As you get more physical in life, you close down the biophysical of your reality. It's just normal, and everybody tells you that this is a fantasy, has nothing to do with anything. It's just nonsense. Those people who are successful and who are working well, their chakras and third eye are fairly open. This is what you could consider in Western terminology your gut feelings. Well, your gut feelings are connected to these energy sources. Your third eye is going to feed this information to your gut. Your chakras are going to feed that information to your gut again. And these are the gut feelings that people talk about in the West. But these are really just energetic feelings. Non-physical feelings that work into the physical because your gut. Your gut is your second mind, really, and fascinating where your health comes from your gut, and a lot of brain chemicals are produced in the gut as well, and apparently from the heart as well. These are all things that we've overlooked, thinking that the entire brain is just where everything happens. Well, obviously the brain is pretty important, but the Egyptians used to throw it away because they didn't think it had any value. Well, I think that was their error. Certainly a little glitz there. Certainly, there's something to this, that the human biosystem is not dependent on the brain to do everything, which is quite interesting, showing that the brain isn't quite everything we crack it up to be. Obviously, it's important, and we tend to be brain-centered, but I think that's a mistake, and a lot of our new technology will be centered on other energy systems. And you have energy systems throughout your entire bioenergy field, which is not just your head. That's kind of a primitive way of looking at it. Stimulate other areas, the heart and root chakras and stomach type areas, and you produce lots of very vital energies that bring you up to higher levels and stimulate the brain. So these are all very, very advanced knowledge. I hope people are getting it as we can tell from this particular situation. But the bottom line is that you have to remove your blockages. You have to open up your chakras and your third eye to get the energy flowing throughout your entire biosystem. And they're much more than the typical 7 chakras that we have right now, 5 to 7, but there are much more than that. There's many that go above you. There's at least probably 10 to 12 chakras that have not been talked about in common reality. So when we move into these things, we have to understand all of these varied energy fields. The other area, of course, is the one that comes a little bit from left field, but can be very difficult and potent in your life. And that's the fact of outside attacks. Now, outside attacks, otherwise known as cursing, is very common, and it's getting more and more common. Now, there's many ways to curse someone. So it can be direct, indirect, etc. And as the society is getting more and more integrated from around the world, people bring curses with them. Now, we think of this when you're talking about Latin and African societies. This is part of their culture, and there's a huge amount of Latins in particular all over the world now, and of course coming to the Western world. This is part of their culture. And the bottom line is that this is a part of it. And don't think that's not part of a lot of other cultures as well. Certainly the Italians have been known for their stragas, their witches, and this is something that are pretty superstitious as well, as most of the Latins type are, which Italians are a type of Latin, of course. But let's not disregard the fact of particularly born-again Christian types who are getting into prayer groups and basically are nothing more than a psychic assault. So everybody's doing it in their own little way. But there's getting more and more actual curses on. Now, how are you affected by it? Well, some people are knocked to the ground with curses, and it takes them out completely. And this can be from relationship situations where you've dated somebody, their family, and of course, let's not disregard the Islam. Islam has a lot of magical aspects to it. Very similar to Christianity, where they'd like to say, oh, no, we're not, we hate occultism. You know, occultism is terrible to Islam. It's considered, typical. I mean, there's not much difference between Islam, Judaism. When you put them all together, they wear the same outfits, they wear the same hats, and they have the same beliefs, literally. I mean, look at a conservative Jew. You couldn't tell that from to a Muslim. What iota? And they have basically identical beliefs. It's kind of shocking. And to see what the Pope wears, well, that's basically a Middle Eastern outfit. So all of these things are kind of amusing. And they're more in sync than they are in opposition. But let's understand that Islam has its. And I've known people who have been attacked by practicing Islamic sorcerers, so to speak. And there are some sets of Islam that use all sorts of magical glyphs and symbols, etc. I'm not sure which of the two sects there are, but there are even little books on this. And they have books of magical talismans and other things, which are quite fascinating, which are not everywhere in Islam, but they do. But I've known a person who was horribly attacked by a person who was an Islamic I don't know if he was a priest or whatever. So I'm not sure what magic he was using. And a lot of things, you got to remember that Islam is steeped in what we would call Middle Eastern magic, which is basically all magic comes from, particularly ritual magic. King Solomon, the Solomon seals, the jinns, all this stuff. Jinns are considered demonic spirits in Islam, but they are just like any other spirits. So as I said, everybody's getting these outside attacks, and their culture attacks them as well. So Western culture still has, as I said, their whole groups of people who are doing things. And, of course, there certainly is a strong magical tradition in the West, which I think is growing as people seek to empower themselves through practical methods. That's why I went into occultism. Religion certainly doesn't empower you. It disempowers you. You go and get on your knees and, please help me, Daddy. Well, I'm not sure that that help usually never comes and usually costs you, and you have less money when you were looking for more money. But all of these things are the bigger picture. Don't think this stuff doesn't happen. So I think a lot of my audience are from many cultures, and they understand this and seen it. So don't think this isn't going on. So don't think that curses are something as commonly called in the West. Psychic attacks, whether this, and the West is known for psychic attacks through using technologies, psychotronic attacks using electricity, and all these things that have people directed energy beam weapons, and all these things are kind of mysterious, but they're somehow affecting the psyche of people and driving them insane and inflecting them. We've known that these things can be done kind of in a gross manner, because they don't target individuals as much as you hear about this. But, they'll hit an embassy. They can use a directed energy beam on an entire building and disrupt people. targeting you individually would be very difficult to do, if possible at all. They'd have to track you in a very directed way and send energy there specifically, more than just like a cell phone. So it would be difficult to do that. But the point is, people are attacked all the time. There is a huge amount of people who have all sorts of mental disturbances through the actual fact of these type of energies affecting them. These energies seem to grow within these people, parasites to a large degree, and we're not sure if they've originally got parasites in you, and this method then triggers them to attack you. But people who do anti-parasitical practice, so if you do, people under these attacks, when they use anti-parasitical herbals and other products, seem to have a direct lower level attack. So there's a connection there, and of course it's a pretty sneaky, awful way of doing things. Infest the person with the actual toxicity that affects their brain, and we do know that brain worms do go into your brain. This is a common understanding, and we're talking about physical entities, physical worms that go into your brain and control you. This is not. Now, we have a whole thing on that, particularly in All Access, that shows you that, and quite frightening of how these things happen and how it gets into your system. And of course, when you take antiparasiticals, it generally works in the intestinal tract, which is good, but it's only one part. The only way to get these entirely out is through using energetic machines, radionic type machines, to kind of disconnect and take these energies out of your brain. So we are working on that as an ultimate solution as well. And that's going to be something else we're going to have to get into to get you functioning, because these things, of course, when they mess up your entire system like this creates illnesses as well. So you've got these three areas basically. You've got negative energies around you. They start to eat their way in. They break down your protection. They start creating blockages. These blockages then create bio blockages of the third eye, the chakras. And then, of course, there is the outside attack. Now, there are ways of handling all this, and we are working on it. And this is such a critical problem that I run into with everybody. What we're going to be doing here is actually, we have created two machines to handle this, a uncrossing third eye opening machine, and also a protection curse removal machine that you just place your photographs on. Now, we have certain amulets as well, our energy cells that do these purposes. But what people need is a little more easier to use technology, a machine you plug in, you leave on 24/7. That does this kind of work for you. One for the uncrossing, one for the opening of the third eye and chakras, and the other one is for keeping curses off of you. So this is critical. That's what stops you. That's why you're not going to higher levels, and you're under this bombardment all the time. So your protections by using your typical technologies may or may not work for you. They will work to a degree, and it'll take longer and be more difficult to put serious curses on you if you are using your Triforce system and a lot of the other machines. But under direct attack, you got to remember the Triforce system is for general manifesting and general protection. It's supposed to keep you even and going. When the weather gets and the waves get super high, well, the Triforce system isn't designed to handle that, because it's designed to handle everything. So it is. There is a weakness to the Triforce system, and you have to amplify the Triforce system, add to it for areas that are particularly problematic. And that would be uncrossing, opening of the chakras and third eye, and of course curse protection and removal. These things have to be added into the Triforce systems additionally. Now, there are things you can do like get the actual energy cells and put them in there, but of course it seems to me the best thing to do here, and for most people, is to have a separate machine that works on these energetic fields. Without that, you run into those problems. So, the Triforce system will keep you going, keep you balanced most of the time, but when something bad happens, this could means that you need a little more energy there. You also have to work on that. Now, it's hard to do that with your Triforce system because you should be working on your regular areas of life, whether it's a relationship, trying to get more money, feeling better. Well, you're working on these little areas constantly, and that's what you're using your system for, and it's putting out this good level of energy. The problem is when the typhoon comes, you have to make sure you have a little more protection than that. And the second thing is that the Triforce system is something that maybe be a little difficult for people to use and so forth. We've designed some smaller machines designed to be plugged in 24/7 and used specifically for these areas that you can use. So that's what we're coming out with here soon. And that's one of the important things, is to keep a level of protection and clearing on yourself all the time. You've got to clear off uncrossing. This is what I tell people that get uncrossing energy cells, etc., is that this is a lifetime tool. You need to use this tool all the time to get rid of the negativity that's building up on you. And these things happen from, let's say somebody in your family, and not you, but someone in your family, even a friend, gets sick or something. Well, you're getting all that sick energy from that person. You're in contact with them. They're not doing it consciously, but you're connected to basically what are death energies, because that person is sick. So what happens to you? Well, you take some of that energy in. Now, if you have a Triforce system and other things, it will be a small amount of it. But if you get this from 3 or 4 people, then you have problems at work, then your spouse, all the things that are normal in life will start creating these boulders in the road in front of you. And you're going to have to figure out ways to go around them or go over them or to blow them up, so to speak, so that the trail is cleared. So these are all the things that happen. Of course, this gets into the fact of also dealing with the other area, which I almost neglected here. There's a third area, and that's troublemakers who are attacking you in general. Now, protecting yourself, removing them curses is all well and good. But the ultimate defense, as the old cliche says, is an offense. So you need to have a good justice retribution system going as well. If someone sends you negative energy, you send it right back. Now, what I'm doing now, and I started this in the past, but I'm getting back into it, is the fact that, if I get something negative from somebody, I go and write their name down there. Little, people think they're anonymous on certain places. Not to me, you ain't. I connect to you through whatever your name you're using, whatever little comments you make any place, or whatever your email address is. That's like a bullseye on your energetic field, because it directly connects to you. No matter if you've used that, you've chosen it like a name. So if anything like an email, or if you use a name even to make comments on no matter where you're at, YouTube, etc., you have just labeled yourself, and with that you are now able to be accessed. So the bottom line is that when someone does something like that, and it's pretty tellable that if somebody who's deliberately attacking you, even if they try and do it sneakily and not come out and say you FFF, because everybody knows that just is going to get clicked off and you're going to get thrown off of social media, so they just try and be nasty. Well, no more, not with me, and everybody should do this. The minute you get some sort of negative feedback from somebody, maybe you're at work, maybe this is somebody you know, maybe it's even somebody who gave you a hard time at a store with a return, well, note their name, and you should go back and send that energy back to them. Now, this does 2 different things. Now, if someone's attacking you, you do more than send their energy back, you attack them. Because that's what needs to be done. They are attacking you. It's called a little thing called self-defense. So the whole idea is you need to send those energies back, because if you get hit from all these negative people all the time, and they have now created a link to you. So a negative person, when they attack you, creates a link. Now, it's a small energetic transfer, but if this happens with 50 people, it becomes a large problem. So you have to get out there and you have to start using your justice retribution systems. And we've come out with a new one recently that's priced well, but yet very effective. And we have a few others on the drawing board that should be out soon. Some very advanced technologies, which probably will only be available to Patreon and All Access members as the time goes on here. But everybody needs to send back those energies. If someone is treating you nastily, and they probably, if it's a boss or at the job or a coworker, you need to thump them all the time because they're toxifying you. They're causing problems and roadblocks, cross conditions. They're affecting your chakras and your third eye. You need to send that energy back and neutralize the effects that they're sending to you. Now, as I've talked before, you really can't stop attack on you unless that person stops attacking you. But you can neutralize their effects. Some of these effects can't be neutralized. Some of the negative energy and their psychic powers you'll pick it up. But it's what affects you is on an emotional level, not a physical level. But you have to. So if somebody gives you a hard time, you make a note of it and you immediately, as soon as you can, or when you get home at night or whatever, you put them in your particular justice retribution box and you send that energy back to them. And if they continue to harass them, you add energy to that to attack them, to stop them from attacking you. That's how life is. So this is another area that people tend to fall down on. And I haven't emphasized this enough in the past, but I am now. And the bottom line is that this is part of this whole protective program, which is critical. Again, this is like many of the books I hope to write in the near future, especially if I live to be 250, I'll get all my work done. So the whole idea is that these are critical areas. So it's not just the fact, let's get all this positive stuff. Let's all do everything great. Let's all be into it. Let's all visualize. Yeah, that's right. That's the important groundwork. The problem is you're all hyped up and people are taking shovels full of poo and throwing them at you all the time. So the bottom line is that oftentimes people are overcome by the poo that's being thrown on them. So what do you do about that? Well, first of all, you got to make sure that that poo has no effect on you. And that means that you are been on a machine that is uncrossing, keeping your third eye and chakras open. And there are physical practices to do here as well. But the machines will do most of it because we live in a life that, I'm not a big fan of spending hours doing work. I want to have a machine that helps me 24/7. So, and that is pretty much 90%. There's always a little bit more you got to do, but that's just life in general. The other thing is, of course, that you have to make sure that you're stopping the attacks on you. If you keep opening everything up and clearing out, if you're constantly driving down the road and you're banging those rocks out of the way, and then you drive down again, there's another rock. Well, pretty soon you're stopping too much of the time. While you're clearing things out, you're still getting blocked and not moving ahead. So what happens there is you have to make sure that you are using retribution. And our new kit that we just redesigned and put together is an awesome tool to go after negative people in your life. It's super easy to use, and it's all about it. We don't use in any way. Our kits are higher levels of justice. And one of the best acts you can do, and the most white light acts you can do, is eliminate evil. Just think of all the evil, corrupt people who were eliminated from this earth. Well, there wouldn't be too many people here, so we would solve a lot of problems, including overpopulation. Probably be underpopulated. Maybe 12 people left. But the bottom line is that if we eliminated the evil, corrupt people, society would work pretty good. I mean, society doesn't work because of evil, corrupt people. Simple as that. I mean, it's not really complicated, but it is complicated solving the issue. People are desperate. They're put in desperate situations so that they can be controlled and manipulated. People are compromised, set up so they can manipulate them. Politicians and so forth, where they actually set them up, where they do all sorts of things to get them involved legitimately or unlegitimately in horrible crimes, where they then compromise them. So the whole idea is that this is how life works. Just imagine if all these people were gone. The world would function much better. Secondly, in general, I mean, you must be very proactive in making a world a good place. It's not, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to do bad stuff. I'm going to try and balance myself. It's kind of like recycling. It's a complete waste of time. While you're bringing your little water jug to be recycled, industry is using trillions of stuff. The oceans are full of it. Nobody is making them pick it up and clean up after themselves. All of this stuff, it's a wasted time. Recycling everything is a fool's errand. Now, I do it. because I'm trying to be a positive person. But ultimately, I don't think I'd really care. They're not solving the problem. We don't need plastics. Everything should be converted to glass. Glass should then be recycled everywhere and massive, and we should use that. Problem solved. Did I just do it again? Dr. Thor has done it again. He solved more problems. It's just amazing. So the whole idea is that, so it's easy to solve our problems. It's not done because of the criminality and the corruption of society. How are we going to stop this? Well, I'm going to pick up all this trash in my neighborhood. And, I used to do that all the time, even as a kid, and particularly when I went out backpacking and target shooting, because people would leave crap everywhere, particularly target shooting. I'd pick up the trash and bring back a big bag of it. So now, if everybody did that, the world, but nobody does it. I was the only one that ever did that. So the whole idea is that that's how those things go. So it's not going to work. How are we going to stop it? Well, we're going to make sure that bad people get what they deserve, and that's bad energy. Now, we generally do not use demons or other things. There's plenty of positive spirits that you've ignored. There's the people want to say how strong entities like Satan and Lucifer are, yet it was St. Michael, the angel warrior of heaven, who kicked his butt, and all the other angels. People forget the story that the good angels kicked the bad angels out and sent them where? To your neighborhood. They're in the hood now. So, but let's not forget that. The media wants to and has been doing this, making Satanism and evil something that is unconquerable. This started with the slasher movies, who you can't kill the people. The Jasons, the Friday the 13th, all these people that are the perpetual evil that cannot be destroyed. I tend to reverse those movies. I see them as the perpetual good that is killing these worthless, scumbucket, low-level, oversexed, freaky, white brats that are out there that screw up the world. So he's doing the good. He's cleaning up the trash. But the bottom line is you can recycle all you want. You can stop these. It does nothing. And seems to have no effect whatsoever on anything in the bigger picture. But it's there, you do it. So whatever 2% of the problem that handles, well, I guess it's 2% that has helped. But in general, it's a big waste of time. So we have to keep this in mind. A lot of glass is just buried because it's too cheap to recycle. You can buy it cheaper than recycle it. But we have to stop all these things. But that's not getting off the course here. So we generally don't use those. There's really nothing wrong with using what would be called demons to attack bad people, as long as you're not worshiping them or giving sacrifices to them. You use and control them like any other substance. You use drain cleaner that is poisonous and toxic to get the crap out of your drain. Is that evil? Well, no, you're using it in a very particular way, and so that it doesn't hurt anything else to get a particular function. But we generally use positive energies, meaning these high-level warrior angels or entities in general, God forms, etc., who are warrior types, who are good. We also then use on our enemies, which is one of the most potent energies and around everybody, which is death, decay, and disease. So we're not calling on demons necessarily to do it. None of our units are based on that in general. What I like to use is other energies, and I don't consider demons to be reliable, and they want a price. So I'm not going to pay a price for doing those things, and you never ever sacrifice or give blood to any entity because that connects you to them as a slave. So you don't do that, period. You don't have to do that. There are other ways of doing it in a higher energetic way. So that goes into a whole nother discussion, which I'll kind of end that here now with that. But you have these areas. You have to do your justice and retribution work on anybody who crosses you, even to a slightest effect. So if someone crosses you today and it's just a little bit, maybe they lied to you, maybe they did something wrong at work, thump them. Somebody who communicates you with email, who has traitorred you or anything else, thump them. The point is that what you do because you're pushing the energy out and you're creating a protective barrier of force instead of sitting in your castle letting the bombs or the boulders bounce off. Now, there's never been historically There's never been a castle that I'm aware of that hasn't ultimately been conquered because you can't survive in a protective mode. You run out of food, you run out of everything else. This is a problem, and of course castles always had water supplies and food supplies, and all of these will eventually run out. So you can't stay in your castle all the time. It's meant to be a initial protective energy, so that somebody just can't run into you and attack you, similar to locks on your door. But anybody can break through a lock one way or another, and at least over time. If they keep kicking the door, how many kicks will it take to kick your door in? So the point is, it's still great to have a lock there, but it's not going to be 100% effective. So you have to get out there, draw your sword, and attack these people that are attacking you, and you have to do this all the time. And hopefully this will also allow you to act better. You won't feel like you're a victim. You won't feel like you have to physically attack someone or do other things outside of your reality. So this should give you a lot of mental security, and know that this is working, so you don't have to take extreme measures that will get you into serious trouble that are basically counterproductive. The other things are, of course, you're not going to be good at that or anything else, or tuning your machines or thinking clearly, if you are cursed. The curses get in there and mess with you because it's going to make you sick. They're going to take your money away. They're going to mess up your entire reality. And as such, we have to work to stay to remove the negative curses. Now, a curse is something like a cancer that is stuck in your aura and continues to grow. It's different than being crossed. So it's basically like a tumor. While a cross condition is more of an energy that's slowly building around you, creating these kind of, I call it a black bubble around you to stop your progression. So it's quite a bit different, and curses can be on you for long periods of time, like a cancer slowly growing. And of course, all these things are heightened in their strength by having a low level of chakra flow and a third eye that is shut or not. So these are all the areas that everyone has to be fully understood how to handle and what to do in general in the bigger picture. So this is critical in your development. And if you want to bring in new technologies and work with them as we develop them, and you're trying to pump all this positive energy in there, and you're using all these great manifesting tools, well, the reason why you're not manifesting is because all of these conflicting energies are affecting your manifesting field energies, and they're decaying them. In some instances, they will completely stop it. So you can't use positive technologies until your way is completely open. So this has been figured out and developed over many, many years of research, from studies, of course, lots of the literature I've read, of course, and of course I've been in this field operating for 50 years now, figuring out all these subtle energies from multi-traditions to figure out all of this going on. But it also goes back into ancient times, etc., and to general history. This is how the world works, and we need to understand that. We're in a pretty nasty, rotten world where people are constantly attacking one another on a social level, and nobody's ever going to get along. We're never going to have that. Now, the best that we can hope for in physical society is that people trade with each other and they stay out of each other's business. So, people want to run their own life. They want to have their own little tribe. And this is how people tend to work, particularly outside of, outside of Western worlds. Now in the West, we think we have bigger tribes. They're called states or political places, your town, etc., and you have a representative there, and all that stuff, which should work but never does. But that's what everybody wants, and that's what is done if you want to solve problems in the world today. That's why we've had so many breakups, like in Eastern Europe with Serbia and all these countries. Well, they had a breakup. Okay, I had a little glitch there. That's all to check on that. But they had a breakup to. So this is what's worked in the Middle East to a large extent, is that there's tribal situations there that are very blatant. But it's like that all over the world. We have countries that are basically, England is made up of 3 separate nations. You have the Welsh, you have the Scottish. Those are separate countries technically with different laws under the UK or the United Kingdom. Kind of united. Shouldn't they change their name to Semi-United Kingdom? And the rest of it are all bunch of different towns. And of course, you equate yourself to, well, I'm a Londoner, I'm a Liverpoolian, whatever it is that you say you are. People say that. You're not from America, you're a Californian, you're a Westerner, you're an Oregonian. And then of course, when you're in Oregon, people say, where are you from? I'm from Portland. So the whole idea is that we segment ourselves to our little tribal down, ultimately to our own family. And this is what works best, but everybody has to agree in a civilized country, and this is no longer the case anywhere in the world, that you're not going to screw it and hurt the other person. But basically that's all we do, because you want to take what they have, regardless of how directly or indirectly it's done. And that's what the whole world has been since the beginning of time. So the cruel face of civilization, which steals your property through courts and eminent domain or taxes, is just as cruel as someone coming into your actual backyard and killing you with an axe. In some way, that would be more direct. So we have to understand all these factors, and if you're going to be one of those who survives and prospers, and there still is a slight way of doing that, society is kind of together a little bit, depending on whom is after you. But the bottom line is that you can do that by being a manifesting scientist. The whole idea is whatever you want, you have to manifest, or should I say whatever you need. And we need a lot in this society, and there are major goals to keep yourself functioning. And of course, all these things affect the two main areas of your life: finances and health. If you're stressed out by your enemies, if they're attacking you, your health energy goes way down. Now, when I look at people, it's rare that you're ever going to find anybody that has strong health energies and highly crossed. They're all about the same, and their manifesting abilities are low as well. So they're all affected by this in the bigger picture of what is going on. So it all affects you. It affects your life, how well you're going to be, and how your finances are when you have all these. So if you take the active stance, and again, I'm a very lazy person. I don't want to do a lot of work. So the whole idea is that's why I have technologies to keep these energies going 24/7. And that's very important that we all understand that. So you need these technologies. They're one-time purchase tools, basically. You use them all your life, and it's a small investment. And we always tend to waste a lot of money on so many other things in life. These are things you buy once, you keep for the rest of your life. They are designed to last many, many years and to keep functioning and to work with you. And this is something that we're adding into the bigger mix of everything. So something we do have to keep in mind of the entire process. So do this and your life will work well. It's as simple as that. And of course, you want to go to your higher goals, and your higher goals is to sustain your physical bioentity, the energy fields around you, which are basically non-physical, but support the physical to a large degree. You want to keep those strong so you can live long and do whatever you want to do and achieve all your goals. That's the goal right now. And do it in a prosperous way. And also, if you're living longer, you're going to see the folly of basic day-to-day life, thinking, well, there's got to be more than this. Let's move on to higher levels than this physical nonsense. We need to move into higher, better levels of existence. And of course, the ultimate thing is just don't come back here again. It's not about living here to be 500. It's about making your experience here, no matter how long you live here, the best. But ultimately, physicality and the entropic nature of this reality, even if it's perfect, even if you live a few hundred years, another glitch there, that's not the goal of this, because it's still an entropic reality. You want to stop entropy, well, you have to then create a light body, go to an existence where there isn't this entropic factor, where you can live in what would be considered wisdom bliss and a much better reality than we have here. Because this reality will never change because of the initial entropic nature of it and the fact of the fact that it's still too physical in nature, and we still clumb onto it. We grab onto the actual physicalness, and that is a big error. We need to move past that, and we need to stop grabbing onto these things. We need to make sure that we move way past that. into the higher level realities that are really there. Because no matter what it is, even as I said, you live 200 years, it's still only 200 years in a process that really goes on indefinitely. So it is not the answer ultimately, but certainly at this particular time, a living to be at least 120, where you are physically and mentally fit, would be wonderful. And nobody is. There are some people living to be in their early 100, 120, 110, 105, whatever. There are people living to be, let's round it off at 100. They're all feeble and need horrible help. So you're not really living that age. You're living that age almost in a torture situation. So the whole idea is that would be ideal to do that. But we have to work with what we have right now. And that means you want to take every second of your life and build it as you can to a higher level. So all of that is critically important to the bigger reality that's out there. We need to work with these realities, and if you use these kind of technologies, this will bring you high-level manifesting. And these are the keys that we're looking at. Well, we are producing great manifesting energy technologies, and people are manifesting at much higher levels, but the bottom line is you keep getting your feet knocked out from under you from all these things in life. Well, how do we stop that so we can keep this building of manifesting energies up to the highest peak possible for you? Well, that means we have to take care of the issues I've just brought up. Well, this should clarify everything. Hopefully people understand the bigger picture now, and I'm putting all this together in books and courses, and of course we're developing technologies so people can understand this, and these are the keys to life. And people that use this do amazingly well. The people who I work with on a consistent basis and who I've known for many years are doing amazingly well. Everybody is pretty prosperous. Have they eliminated all their problems in life? Well, a lot of these problems were started before they even started manifesting. And that's the other problem, is that you have a lot of leftover problems. People have been crossed and cursed for 10, 20 years. This is not going to be easy to eliminate entirely. But people that use all this do quite well, and they have taken their situation and made it extremely better because of their technologies, even if it wasn't the most pleasant at the time. But the future, again, is how can we do this? What are the problems? Why are you having these situations? Of course, if you have some problem in your life, it's going to take time to eliminate that, and that's one of the other longer term situations, but the technology will handle that as well. But you're going to come into something with a lot of leftover blockages, trashes, and curses on you, and all that goes back to the machines as well. You've got to remove all these energies, then while you're still trying to build things with a manifesting technology directly, like a Triforce system, a Scion generator, or so many of the things we have. Well, all of that is fantastic. So these are tools that really help you, and this is the next level of technology, not things that do something for you on a physical level, like word processing or accounting or whatever that may be, or calculators or whatever programs help you in life in general. Photography programs to do editing. Yeah, well, they're doing specific jobs, but what happens when that job is over with? You may have but what if it's a business thing? Well, you need to empower what you did. You need to now manifest what you're really doing that for. So if you're making a film or whatever, you got to make sure that film is successful, or you just wasted a lot of time and money. That's the next level of technology. Manifesting machines that make things happen beyond the common. So all of that's a fantastic new jump in understanding and way above. I used to say 25th century technology. This is really probably 30th century technology. This is moving really thousands and thousands of years ahead, and will be commonplace back then. But you can have a little touch of it now, and we're making it better and better every day. So I hope everyone, this has been helpful. This is something I recommend listening to several times. It's packed with information and understanding the bigger realities of everything out there. Until next time.